So in today's video, I'm going to play against Stockfish. Stockfish is of course much better at chess than I am. But what if we play a really drawish opening? So I'm going to make it play the Berlin defense. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, knight f6. This got a drawish reputation starting in the 2001 World Championship match between Kasparov and Kramnik. So a lot of those games continued with castles, knight takes e4, d4, knight d6, takes, and then we trade the queens. And Kramnik demonstrated that he was able to hold this position with black many times. Now, I actually think this is not a very drawish position. It's actually quite imbalanced. So black has the damaged pawn structure with the doubled pawns. White has more space, and black can't castle, but black does have the bishop pair. So there's actually a lot of imbalances here. I think if you gave this position to most amateurs, even good amateurs, it's probably not getting a draw. So if I'm going to try to make a draw against Stockfish, just try to survive because it's way better at chess than I am, I'm going to take a different approach. So going back over here, I think the way to just be boring is to play rook e1. So now I'll go let the engine think and we'll see what it comes up with. So engine played knight d6, which is the main move, even though it doesn't have a book file. So I'm just going to take the pawn. Now notice that the bishop is actually immune. If black were to take it, I would take the knight, and that would be a check, and I'd also be attacking the queen. So if black takes the knight, I actually would win the game. Okay, that's a bit of a surprise. I thought the main line was instead knight takes, rook takes, and then bishop e7. I'll just retreat my bishop. So why I call this the way to make a draw in the Berlin is that even though there are fewer exchanges in than the endgame I showed you earlier, the pawn structure is completely symmetrical. So there is pretty much no imbalances to work with. I'm not an expert on this particular variation, but I think the main line is bishop f6, rook retreats, then I think black plays knight f5, and then c3 and d5. So white is maybe a tiny bit better because the knight on d6 does block black's development. So black wants to get the pawn at d5 and equalize. So here's an important lesson for you guys. Don't be overly eager to trade pieces. So it's tempting to try to trade the rooks, exchange pieces, make a draw. But if I do that, I'm conceding the e-file to black's queen. It's probably still okay, but it's definitely, I've won a lot of games where my opponent is too excited to trade and they make little concessions like that. And then as those little concessions accumulate, then I can get a big advantage. So I don't want to rush into this trade. I'm just going to play c3. Going to reinforce my pawn and let black take my rook. Give me the open file. Now my queen gets the open file. Black is getting the knight out of the way so I can play d5 later. My first thought was knight f3, but I think black's bishop would be very comfortable on the f5 square, so I'm going to play bishop d3 to stop it. So knight f3 is probably okay here, but it would give black's bishop something to do. So if I just play h3, restrict the bishop, then black will have probably nothing better than playing bishop f5 and trading bishops. So let's do that. So this position is pretty dead equal. Its knight and bishop are maybe a hair more active than mine, but then my queen is more active than the engine's queen, so very even position here. So now the idea is I'll play rook e1 and trade rooks. So the engine's stopping g4, but that wasn't really a threat. It would just, I think, weaken my own king. Maybe the idea is to play h4, but I'm not too worried. I think the only way black could cause me any problems is maybe the knight goes back somewhere and then the queen comes out to f5 and then infiltrates. So if I play queen e2, I just stop all that forever. And maybe if black falls asleep, maybe the h5 pawn drops off. So let's go here. The engine is playing either queen f5 or knight e6, and either one of those would hit my bishop, so I'll move my bishop out of the way and offer a trade. Bishop e5, bishop d8. I'm going to reroute my knight to d3, so it would stop any queen f5 ideas. Knight e1. Bishop h2. The engine's last two moves don't make any sense to me. I'm just going to attack its pawn and go back.
Bishop b8. Pawn a6. Bishop h2.
And now we get to trade queens, so I'm feeling pretty good about my position here.
Queen takes e6. Knight takes e6.
So I can trade even more pieces with knight f4. The one thing I had to calculate was I had to make sure there's no bishop d6, because I had pinned the knight to the bishop. But that doesn't work because I can take the knight, and then after bishop takes h2, I can actually just trap the bishop. So I would actually win the game after bishop d6. So this will trade into a drawn bishop ending. The only thing I have to worry about is maybe the bishop could sneak behind my lines, and if the bishop gets to c1, that would be a problem, but as long as I don't do anything extremely careless, that's not going to happen.
Knight f4. Knight f8.
So now bishop d6 could be kind of awkward with the pin, so I'm just going to avoid all that by playing knight back to d3.
Knight d3. Knight f4. Knight takes f4. Bishop takes f4.
I've been expecting that instead of trading knights, the engineer would play king f7, so after knight takes, at least they could say its king is more active, though I should still be comfortably holding. This move really surprised me because I can just lock down the queen side with b4. The one thing I had to calculate was what if it plays g5, I move my bishop back somewhere, let's say d2, and then plays g4 to try to get some space on the king side. So in that case, I can just trade and then play f4. If the engine doesn't take en passant, then I can just play g3 and bring my king up, and there's no way in. I have a fortress. If the engine does take en passant, I take an f3, and then again, there's just no way in. My pawn f3 would cover e4 and g4, and I'm going to bring my king up to e2 to guard the pawn, so there'd just be no way for black to make progress.
Pawn b4. Pawn h4. King e2. King f7.
I think the right setup here defensively is I move my bishop back. I'm thinking d2, that shouldn't really matter. And then f4 and king f3. Now black can try to put some pressure on my f4 pawn with moves like g5 and bishop d6. In that case, I think I can just exchange on g5, and I believe I'm all right.
Bishop d2. King e6.
I actually think it's easier if I play g4. So even in some structure where, say, take, and black creates a passed pawn, I can allow that and play g4, and then there's no way in.
Pawn. Pawn f5.
So I think I can play g5 here. So if black doesn't do anything, I can just play f4 to follow up, and then it's completely locked position. I have a fortress. The one thing black could try, though, is black could offer this sacrifice with f4, and then I take, and then king f5 is going to regain the pawn. So I drop the bishop back, let's say to e3, black takes, takes, king takes, and then king e3, and then king f5, f4, he has a draw. So black can't make any progress. There's no way for the king to penetrate. Black can only play g5 in a trade. I can shuffle back and forth forever between e3 and f3.
Pawn g5. Pawn f4. Bishop takes f4. King f5.
So I realized instead of playing bishop d2, it's a little bit cleaner if I play king f3 instead, because that prevents any king e4 ideas.
King f3.
Oh, Stockfish actually offered a draw, so of course we're okay with that. So just to illustrate that line once again, so if black takes, then I take, king takes, king e3, then king back to f5, f4, g5, take, and then there's just no way in. I shuffle back and forth between e3 and f3 forever, and black can shuffle back and forth between g5 and f5 forever. So what we learned today is that the Berlin is so drawish that even a 2100 rated amateur can hold a draw against Stockfish in it.